signed up for.
What my story proves, what it proves is that if you stand up and you fight back, no matter how much they try to back you into a corner and bully you, if we stand together, because I wouldn't have won this by myself. If it was just me, Matt Strickland, fighting, I'd be in prison right now. But the people of America stood with me from across the nation.
When all the lockdowns happened, there were a handful of businesses that stood up and said no. What you ran one of these businesses that the government tried to shut down. You resisted. And the first thing I just want to say is this is a story that I'm excited for you to tell, because we've long told people nonviolent civil disobedience, stand up for what you believe in, file the lawsuits, file the complaints, make them work for their oppression or whatever, and you will win. And you won. They tried to shut you down. They hurt your business. They hurt you. But then in the end, you ended up winning out. So let's tell us exactly what went down with your business, how that started.
Yeah, well, so as soon as COVID started, I was actually at the time I was still working as an intelligence analyst for the military, just to supplement my income. Because when you start a restaurant, you're not off to the races, automatically making money. So when COVID happened in March of 2020, they shut my entire program down that I was working on. And I was working on a pretty intense, a pretty serious program, and that had a lot of national security implications. So when they sent all of us home and they shut the entire skiff down, I paid attention and I said, well, this must be something serious. This must be a virus that's going to kill half the world, like they're saying. So I took it serious, and I listened to the recommendations of, at that time, Governor Northam, and I shut my restaurant down, took a step back because I wanted to be responsible and didn't want to put my customers in harm's way. Nobody knew at that time what was going on. So it wasn't long after that, maybe a month or so, that I started to realize something weird was going on. And then 3 months after, June of 2020, Governor Northam said, okay, restaurants, you can open back up, but under these provisions. And that's when it clicked. I said, wait a minute. This is more about control than it is our health and safety. And it was because they put mandates in place, like you have to wear a mask when you walk in the restaurant, but as soon as you sit down, somehow you're safe from COVID. And nobody's allowed to sit at my bar, but I could pull the table up to the bar and you can sit there. And my bartender couldn't hand a drink over the bar. My bartender had to walk around the bar and serve it to the person side by side. Just very arbitrary mandates that made absolutely no sense. And so, like I said, I spent my entire adult life fighting dictatorships overseas, and I wasn't going to come home and allow a dictatorship to rule. So I did the only thing I could do, and that was fight back by not complying, civil disobedience. And I kind of did that kind of under the radar at first. I didn't announce it. My customers just knew that when they came to Gourmelts, they were walking into what America used to be pre-COVID. They were walking into freedom.
A safe space.
A safe space. There you go.
Space.
And I operated that way actually from June of 2020 to January of 2021. I would get a call from the health department maybe once a month or so, and they would say, "Hey Matt, we got a call from one of your customers that said you're not following COVID mandates," and I would never confirm or deny it. And at that time, the health inspectors, they weren't allowed to come out and inspect, so none of them ever came out to my restaurant. So I would just say, "Oh, well, thanks for the call. I appreciate that." And they would just say, "Oh, yeah, just follow COVID mandates." And I'd be like, "Oh, okay, cool, whatever." And it went like that until January 2021. Now, what happened in January was Biden took office. And when he took office, as you guys know, he started firing off all of these executive orders. One of those executive orders mandated OSHA come out in conjunction with local health departments and shut down restaurants specifically that weren't following COVID mandates. And that's when I got my first visit from the health department and OSHA. And they said, "Hey, Matt, you're not following COVID mandates." And I said, no, I'm not. I said, because they don't make any sense. I said, if you can make them make sense to me, common sense, because I'm all about common sense. I've never been a very political guy. I've never trusted politicians on either side of the aisle, to be honest with you. And I just want things to make sense. And what he told me is really what set the wheels in motion. He said, well, Matt, it doesn't have to make sense. The governor said you have to do it, so you have to do it. And at that point, I said, absolutely not. This is not how things work in America. And he said, well, we'll come back and we'll suspend your health department license. And I said, well, you do what you have to do, but I'm going to do what I know I have to do, and that is afford my customers their constitutional rights. And at that point, I told him, I said, at this point, you are trespassing, so if you don't leave my property, I'll have you removed. And he left, but he made good on his promise, and he came back about 2 weeks later, served me with the suspension papers, suspended my health department license. And in the state of Virginia, if your health department license is suspended, your alcohol license, your ABC license, is automatically suspended. So I lost both of those that day. And I continued to operate business as usual. I didn't comply. And at that point, I made a video, and I put it out to the public what was going on, and I let them know that I would not be complying. And the main reason is because, like I said before, I spent a lot of my time, a lot of my adult life fighting overseas. And I have a lot of brothers that went overseas with me and didn't make it back. A lot of guys that died over there. And their kids are growing up right now here in the United States of America because they felt that America was more important than their life. So if I'm not willing to put my livelihood on the line, when those guys are willing to put their life on the line, then what kind of man am I? And my wife and I, we always teach our kids to do what's right, no matter what the personal cost is to them. So how in the hell are we going to teach them that if we're not willing to do the same thing ourselves? So those are the main reasons why I fought back. And because I did that, they sued me. Governor Northam sued me, and he took me to court and tried to shut my business down. But I didn't back down. And it was overwhelming, the response from the community that showed up after that. I mean, I had people coming from across the nation to support me. I had one guy come all the way, I remember, from Iowa. Now, my restaurant, Gourmelts, is right off of Interstate 95 in Virginia, not even a mile from the exit. So it's very convenient. So I get a lot of people that come by all the time, just passing through. So this guy came up to me, and he said, "Hey, I'm from Iowa." And I said, "Well, you just passing through or what?" And he said, "Nope, I flew out here just to come to your restaurant and shake your hand and look you in the eye and thank you for what you were doing." And he started crying. And that right there, man, it got me. It let me know at that point that I was doing the right thing. Because when you make a decision like my wife and I made, which was to fight back, you have no idea which way it's going to go. We thought it was going to be the end of our business. We thought it was going to be the end of everything we worked our entire life for. But the community showed up and they supported us, and we had a line out the door from open to close. And by 7 p.m., we had no food left.
Wow.
All we had was bread. And people were walking up to the register saying, "Give me a piece of bread and I'll pay full price for it."
Wow, it's amazing.
And it blew my mind. And we continued to fight back. And I reached out to my Republican representatives in Virginia, because they're supposed to be conservative patriots that stand for the Constitution. And all I was doing was standing for the Constitution, standing for my customers' constitutional rights. And I was very disappointed that none of my Republican representatives reached back out to me. And so, long story short, I said, how do I get rid of these scumbags? How do I make sure? Because they run around saying Democrats are ruining the country, and they are. But these Republicans that are sitting on their hands, not willing to step up and fight for you and me, they're no better than those Democrats. That's the establishment we talk about. The uniparty is absolutely real.
In the end, you end up, you got back your liquor license, your health license, and all that stuff?
Well, so what happened is we go to court with the health department, and I beat the health department in court. I proved that these mandates were in fact unconstitutional, and they had to give me my health department license back.
Good.
So the next step was the ABC. We go before the ABC board to get my ABC license back, and we thought it would be, cut and dry, open and shut. Hey, you took my ABC license only because the Virginia Department of Health took my health department license. Well, we beat them in court, and they had to give me that license back. So now, in turn, you should have to give me my ABC license back. Makes sense, right?
Yeah.
Well, it's a very liberal ABC board. Now, at this time, we had a change of governors in Virginia. So Governor Youngkin took over. So now Ralph Northam is no longer the governor. We got a Republican governor, Republican lieutenant governor, and Republican attorney general. So I go before the ABC board, and it's a very liberal ABC board. And what they said was, in a nutshell, basically was, Matt, it doesn't matter that you beat the Department of Health, and that's the only reason we took your license. It doesn't matter that the reason they took it was unconstitutional. All that matters is we took it, and you didn't comply. And that word comply kept coming up. And they said, so for that reason, we're not going to give you your license back. And I said, well, Roger that, then I don't need a license. And I continued to sell alcohol without it.
Wow.
And I immediately, as soon as Glenn Youngkin took office, I reached out to him, and I heard nothing back from him.
We all saw the video where you're filming and the ABC guys come in and the cops come in and they're raiding and looting your private property of alcohol. Mm-hmm. So what finally happened? What is this?
Yeah, well, the reason they came out and raided my place is because, like I said, I was reaching out to the governor since he took office. And by that time, I announced my run for state senate to come crush the establishment. And Republican leadership, they don't like when a Republican candidate speaks out against other Republicans. But I have no idea why. You should speak out against any politician that's not doing their job. So for that reason, they didn't reach out and help me. They left me to the wolves. And I heard nothing back from the governor's office or the attorney general's office until December 2nd of 2022, this past December, when the Virginia State Police and the Virginia ABC agents came and raided my restaurant and took every drop of alcohol out of my restaurant.
That's where you're at right now? What?
Well, so that's the viral video that you guys saw. And then, so what happened after that is we were going back and forth and they were trying to settle with me, but I've always stayed strong in my stance in that I will not settle with you. I didn't do anything illegal. I didn't do anything wrong.
What do they want? What kind of settle do they want at this point? I mean, the whole thing's over.
Yeah, well, so, they've always, they were offering me, hey, Matt, instead of 90 days of suspension and a $15,000 fine or whatever it was, no suspension of your license, and just give us $2,000.
Oh my goodness!
And
so
we'll
it's
make it
sort
go
of a
away.
little extortion.
A little shakedown.
Yeah.
And exactly.
Wow.
And it's all about them
That's
wanting to get a
bogus.
win, and that's it. And so I said, listen, I stood strong. Hey, no settlement at all. And they kept coming back with settlement offers. I said, you know what? I will settle with you. I said, I'll pay you $17.76. And I was hoping like hell they took that just to remind them of freedom.
This is like Michael Corleone when he says, my I offer is this nothing.
That's right. So of course they didn't take it, and I said, well, listen, man, you guys aren't getting a dime from me. I am not going to serve a suspension, and I'll tell you what. After I reopen my restaurant for Christmas, because I'll be closed for Christmas, when I reopen after Christmas, I'm going to open my bar back up, and I'm going to sell alcohol, and I'm operating business as usual. And magically, before I close for Christmas, December 23rd, and I told him, I said, hey, listen, if Glenn Youngkin and the rest of the Republican leadership in Virginia, if you guys are ready for the political shitstorm that follows you arresting a small business owner who is also a veteran that fought for his country, if you're ready for that political shitstorm, I'm ready to go to jail. Because a lot of my brothers were ready to die for this country, and they did. So I've been ready to die for my country since I was 17 years old. So I'm damn sure ready to go to jail for my country. So at that point, it was a Mexican standoff, man, and they folded. December 23rd, they gave me all of my alcohol back. They gave me my ABC license back, and I didn't pay a dime.
When did we go down there? What was that? That was before this, right?
That was before that. So
Yeah.
you remember, we
It's
were
like a week
planning a
before.
party.
Right.
Yeah. So I told you, I said, hey, Tim, this is my plan. I said, regardless of what happens, the day we open after Christmas, we're going to be selling alcohol, man. Let's throw a party down here. And we were planning that.
Yeah.
And magically, they said, you know what, never mind. They tapped out and they said,
They brought your booze back.
December 23rd, you get everything back. Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah.
Well, you would have made them look so bad.
Yeah.
I mean, you made him look bad and good.
What?
Yeah, very.
What
he's
happened
very
like
good.
in the early days when you were resisting the initial stuff? What was the process? Day one, you didn't shut down. Were they like fining you every day, and then in retrospect they just dismissed the fines? What was happening day to day? 'Cause
Yeah.
I feel other people are going through this.
Yeah, I mean, it was so I was fined over $70,000 by OSHA for having an unsafe work environment.
Was that a day by day fine that added up to
It was
70?
just arbitrary fines that they just made up. So like they sent me this piece of paper that said, oh, hey, Matt, for not making people wear a mask, we're fining you $20,000. For not putting up plexiglass, we're fining you $35,000 or whatever it was. Where the hell did you get that? Where'd you get those numbers from? You just made them up?
And where'd you get these regulations?
Yeah,
I mean,
exactly.
they're totally arbitrary.
Yeah.
Plexiglass is going to do something.
Yeah, it's just insane. So when that OSHA inspector actually came out to my restaurant, he said, you got to put plexiglass up. I said, okay, I want to know the regulation. How wide does the plexiglass have to be? And he said, well, actually, in the regulation, there's nothing that says how wide it has to be. I said, well, so you're telling me if I put a 1-inch strip of plexiglass up, I'm technically in compliance? And he said, well, technically, yeah. And I said, listen, man, take your OSHA hat off for 1 second and just talk to me man to man. Does that make any sense to you? And again, he said, Matt, it doesn't have to make sense. That's what they said, so you have to do it. And
Psychotic.
That's
that's
not
it.
how
Completely
the American
insane.
government is supposed to work.
That's how they work.
That's
how
not
they do it. And
not
so
what we signed up for.
what my story proves, what it proves is that if you stand up and you fight back, no matter how much they try to back you into a corner and bully you, if we stand together, because I wouldn't have won this by myself. If it was just me, Matt Strickland, fighting, I'd be in prison right now. But the people of America stood with me from across the nation. I mean, they came out of the woodworks and supported me. And the only thing that politicians, the only thing that they answer to is political pressure. And I mean, everybody knows Glenn Youngkin is trying to run for president now. And so they inundated his office with emails and phone calls. He couldn't make a social media post without somebody jumping on his post saying, hey, what about Matt Strickland? What about Gore Meltz? And they caved to that political pressure. They didn't want to help me because I stand up against not only Democrats, but Republicans also. But the political pressure was enough from across the nation that they had no choice.
The man on the news says the prize